Hello everyone, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Riska, and in this video, I would like to share to you about hypothesis testing. But since this is my first video, I'm gonna focus on how to create or conduct a proper hypothesis testing based on our question or based on our assumption. And in the next video, inshallah, I'm gonna share how to do calculation of hypothesis testing using software such as SPSS or RScript. Okay, so let's check it out. Here, I already make a summary for all of you about how or steps to do hypothesis testing. First step is we need to understand the problem or assumption, okay, based on the question. And then after we already understand the assumption, we need to choose the type of hypothesis. Because in the statistical analysis for hypothesis testing, there are three types of hypothesis, and I will gonna share to you in the next slide. Okay, and then finally, after you already understand the assumption and you already choose the type of hypothesis, finally you can do calculation of hypothesis testing. You can For this calculation you can use the statistical software such as SPSS or ALMOS or PLS Square or RScript, or you can do calculation normally using the hypothesis formula. But for the next video, I'm gonna focus to do hypothesis testing using the RScript software. Okay. But for this video, we will focus only on the first these two second step. Okay. So here's the thing. Yeah. So this is the question, the sample question. So for this question, suppose that we already have a regression model, simple regression model here. For variable dependent is household. So there are 50. There are 50 households as our respondent or our variable dependent here, the household. Okay, and then we want to calculate or we want to examine the correlation or the correlation of income household with their food expenditure. So food expenditure here is the variable dependent or variable y. Okay, so variable y here food expenditure, and variable x or variable independent here is the uh, household. Okay, the household. Okay, that's the question. So which one is our assumption here based on the question? We can see, suppose that the Australian Taxation Office or ATO conjectures households spend less than $16 out of every additional $100 income to purchase food. Okay, so this is the assumption that we can use to make hypothesis testing. So the assumption here, households spend less than $16. $16 is the assumption, the number of assumption, and then the argument here, less than $16. Household spend less than $16. Okay, so now we already understand the problem. Okay, and then the second step is we need to choose type of hypothesis based on this assumption. So this is the assumption. In the statistical analysis, there are three types of hypothesis testing. First is left tail test, or we can also say lower tail test. And then the second assumption is right tail test or upper tail test. And then the third assumption is two tail test. Okay, so this is the assumption. And to select which assumption that we want to choose, we can see the question. So the question is, households spend less than $16. So here's the thing. In every assumption here, we have two types of hypothesis. First is hypothesis null, and the second one is hypothesis 1. Okay, hypothesis null is hypothesis that always against our assumption. That will be an opposite of our assumption or our question. Okay, and hypothesis 1 is the type of hypothesis that support our assumption. So if you want to choose which assumption that proper for our question or our assumption here, you only need to focus on hypothesis 1. you can ignore hypothesis null because hypothesis null is not supporting our assumption. Okay, so you can only choose or you can only focus on hypothesis 1. So hypothesis 1 for the assumption left tail test is the number less than the assumption. So based on the question here, we can choose left tail test. Okay, but if the question is ATO, suppose that household spend more than $16. More than $16. So you cannot choose left tail test, you choose right tail test because for right tail test, hypothesis 1 is more than $16. So $16 is always in the um, right side here. Okay. But if the question is ATO, suppose that household spend equals $16. Okay, spend equals $16 every month. So for that assumption, you need to choose two-tailed test because hypothesis 1, it could be $16 or it could be more or less than $16. To make it easier understanding the assumption here, you can see the graph here. Okay, so this is the graph of hypothesis testing. For example, here, lower tail test or you can say left tail test. It's similar. Okay, lower tail test, left tail test is similar. We choose lower tail test if our number or based on our calculation for hypothesis testing is less than assumption. So if the assumption is less than the number, we choose lower tail test. But if the number is more than the assumption, you choose upper tail test or right tail test. But if the number it could be less or more than the assumption, you choose two tail test. So in this area in the middle here in the graph is for two tail test. It could be more or it could be less. Okay, it could be less or it could be more or it could be equal to the calculation, to the assumption, $16 here. Okay, so for this question, we already know that we need to choose left tail test. So how to create the proper hypothesis test based on this question using left tail test? So here, for the question A, conduct a proper hypothesis test. Because in this regression model, they use beta, so I will gonna use as beta as a symbol here. Okay, so first we need to create hypothesis null first. Hypothesis null against our assumption. So hypothesis null beta 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 is the number that we will get based on the calculation. Okay, beta it could be more or equal than $16. Okay, so it always against the assumption. So beta more than or equal with $16. Okay, and then hypothesis 1 or hypothesis that support our assumption is beta, okay, less than $16. That's similar with the question. Okay, beta less than $16. So here is our proper hypothesis for this question. Okay, for the next video, inshallah, I'm gonna share to you how to do calculation using RScript software. Okay, thank you. I hope this video will beneficial for all of you guys and see you in another video. Bye bye.